I'm Mary Marinville, and it is January, and I am here in the Oxnard Plain, and it's absolutely gorgeous outside right now. I just got back from upstate New York, where I'm from, and it's probably 5 there, and it's 70 here today. So isn't it a gorgeous day?
It's absolutely a wonderful day here today.
Yeah. And I'm here with Martin Gramckow. And Martin, I don't know if you remember this, but I met you 7 years ago.
Well, I do remember when we met, but I didn't realize it was 7 years ago.
7 years. Time
Right.
passes quickly when you're having fun. And I'm so glad that we're here today because you were one of the first farmers I met in Ventura County.
No kidding.
Yes.
On that board.
On that board.
Huh. Well, I hope it was a good impression.
It was, because, and that's why I'm here. It's taken me a long time to get here, but I'm so glad to be here. So I like to start every interview by asking, how did your family end up in Ventura County?
Well, that is a long story. So my parents grew up in Germany, and after World War II, where both my father and mother were conscripted into the German army,
Wow.
came to this country looking for a better life. And my father worked in the agriculture industry as a bookkeeper. My mother worked as a house cleaner. And eventually, to make a long story a little bit shorter, they started the sod business with my brother when he graduated from college.
Okay. Now, your brother is Jürgen Gramckow,
Jürgen, that's right.
and you started the business together with your parents?
Well, not myself. I was still young. I was still in junior high school at the time. But my brother, who was 14 years older, had graduated from Stanford and was preparing to get a career in engineering. And my father, always the independent, wanted to finally start his own business, and they took the opportunity together to begin the sod farm.
What year was that?
1972, I believe. No, actually, it might have been 69, because that was the year we had the big rainstorm, the big rain event, and I remember that was the year we began.
So you started in this exact location in 1969, where your headquarters is today?
No, actually, we started down the street. We started another sod farm that we're now competitors with, and restarted this sod farm in 1972, I believe.
Okay, in 1972, I'm glad to say I was 5 years old. I'm giving my age away. And that obviously was very successful. But right now, we're not standing by sod. The sod is not too far away, but we are standing inside your hoop houses for raspberries. So how long ago did you start this project? Can you tell us more about the varieties? And when we talked on the phone about doing this, you said, yes, I really am excited to talk to you about our new raspberry project. So I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, so the raspberry project is incredibly exciting. I started a little later in the business. I didn't come on until 1989. I had been an engineer at Hughes Aircraft, actually working in the aerospace industry, doing missile design and satellite analysis. I mean, it was, I'm a structural engineer.
I always knew he was very intelligent at the board meetings. You were always had wonderful questions. And
so as an engineer, I fundamentally like to solve problems, and along the way, I had the opportunity to come to work with my brother. It was not a matter of disliking engineering. It was really, as I saw it, an opportunity to work and have a little bit more autonomy and creativity. So at the time it was the sod business, and as you all know by now, we had a very large recession. We're still struggling in this recession, and that took a significant beating. Our sod business took a 70% decline.
wow.
So, we decided...
Because people aren't building right now, construction, people are, yeah.
Absolutely. The construction halted. We saw years and years of continual decline, and then to compound that, we're now in a significant drought. And so to the extent that the housing market has essentially bottomed and possibly starting to see some activity, we just don't have the water. Our customers don't have the water to put their lawns in. So that industry is very much very much faltering right now.
Declining.
So declining. And we, about 3 years ago, looked at this and said, you know, we really kind of need to reinvent ourselves and look forward. The sod business may never come back to where it was. We had been growing blackberries on a very short basis for Driscoll's, and
when you say so, like what kind of acreage did you have that you were growing blackberries?
we had a small 5-acre trial in Ojai.
Okay.
To growing blackberries with Driscoll's, and to determine what variety would work best there. Blackberries grow naturally in Ojai, so we just assumed, well, you know, let's not fight nature.
Right.
Let's see which varieties work well here. But in the course of that conversation with Driscoll, they suggested possibly raspberries. And so...
Is that because this raspberries is a growing market? The demand for raspberries increases every year?
Well, the raspberry business was a growing market, and it was very lucrative, and we were looking for alternatives to the sod business. And so we pursued that with Driscoll, and it was in a meeting with Miles Ryder, who is was the CEO at the time, mentioned to us that maybe we would consider growing in substrate, and that would be the future of this business going forward.
When you say substrate, what do you mean by that?
So substrate is the containers that we're growing in. I don't know if you can see them on the camera.
So we'll take some photographs of those, but is substrate another way to say hydroponic?
Absolutely. Substrate is a subset of hydroponics. So
Okay.
there are natural flow systems, there are substrate systems.
Okay.
I think there are even other systems, but it is considered to be hydroponic. And basically the substrate serves, its only purpose is to hold the root structure in place while we bathe the roots in the hydroponic solution as many as 20 or 30 times a day in very small irrigations.
Okay. You were talking to us a little bit earlier, and please feel free to talk about the details of, you were talking, this is a northern variety of raspberries, and you put them in a cold environment to emulate winter, correct? And
Correct.
then, yeah.
Correct. So we have, in Oxnard, we have growing conditions that allow, one of the few places in the world, frankly, where we have the ability to grow year-round. Mexico can do very well at hitting the winter market, but they don't have the weather to do well in the summertime. The northern climates do very well at growing for the summer, but can't make the winter markets.
Yeah, they're not growing raspberries in the winter.
And Oxnard has historically been that location for many, many crops that we can go year-round. So we have northern climate raspberries here, and we have southern climate raspberries here.
Okay.
And we're able to manipulate them in this process to put them into areas, into windows of market opportunity that you couldn't do in the ground.
And as consumers who want to eat raspberries all year round, we appreciate that you do that for us, because these, you said, will be ready to harvest in about 6 weeks.
That's right. This is actually a southern variety that will be coming in about 6 weeks. And we have, on another portion of the ranch, a northern variety that would normally not begin harvesting until early spring, but will be now harvesting in the middle of the winter time. And it's giving us an opportunity to provide product where most of the raspberries will be coming from central Mexico.
Okay, wonderful. So you were saying that you put the bare root, you take the bare root raspberries, see, I was listening, and you put it into these substrate containers and into corn husks. Is that the medium?
So pretty close, Mary. Look, we grow that we have this pot where we put the core material. Core is a coconut husk fiber. And with a little bit of perlite, so we make our own media here on site. We put these plant roots in, and we grow that first cane, that's called a primocane. And that comes in a November, December timeframe. We then cut that back, and it's called a cutback in the industry. Then what it does is it initiates buds. We cut the plant back, and we strip all of the leaves off, and it looks like a cane that you might get, or roses that you might buy in the nursery.
That's the image I have in my mind.
And it looks just like that. You'll see just rows of canes. For the particular one you're talking about, we do that actually in September or October.
Okay.
And we take that cutback bucket with that cutback in it, and we load it into boxes, and we put those boxes into the cooler, into one of the coolers in town. It happens to be a time of year when there's not a lot of activity in the celery business. Most of this cooler volume is built around the celery industry.
Is it Duda's cooler?
It's not Duda's cooler, but we've ultimately been able to mesh with that industry just so
Wonderful.
it just works out. So we're getting better efficiency utilization out of the coolers.
Collaborations are good.
And yeah, and it's always good that way. So we then provide a false winter chill. In about 6 weeks, we're able to produce what would normally occur over the course of the entire winter. In fact, we're able to do it better than we can here in Oxnard because it doesn't get cold enough to give it a true winter chill. That variety then gets put in the field at the beginning of December, and we'll harvest in March, April, with probably the highest quality raspberry fruit in the industry.
Wow.
And that's really unprecedented, and it harvests for us at a point where pricing is good because no one else is there.
Right. You know what I really like to hear is when it is a collaboration between the consumer, because as we learn more about nutrition and superfoods, we want to eat those foods like strawberries and raspberries and blackberries and spinach. And then you're the farmer, and you're working with, you said Driscoll's, which is the considered the distributor or the retailer in this case. Well, they sell it to the retailers.
Right.
And you're all working together, you know, to make it work and to woohoo! And that's one of your pollinators. We need to talk about those. Good segue. Coming together to work to feed people. You're all working together, and hopefully you all make money.
Well, we wouldn't be working together if we weren't.
And earlier, Martin, and I want you to also talk, you've got both conventional and organic raspberries here, and you said to me the organic growing this year, that's going to be quite a challenge. And I said, well, don't you farmers love a challenge? And he said, and what was your answer to
well,
that?
I said, listen, if it if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So yeah, that certainly adds a challenge. And again, because I'm an engineer, what I really am is a problem solver. I think if we have to, as we get older, we ultimately start to understand what we do well and maybe not so well.
And as a business owner too, you constantly have to, not only as an engineer, but as a business owner, if you want to stay in business, you're constantly having to solve problems.
Right, and you have to enjoy solving problems.
Right, and don't you love it?
Oh yeah, no, I do love it, but you need to get home to my family.
You were talking about moving toward some of the raspberries towards organic, and why is that more challenging? I'm just interested.
Yeah, so there's a couple of challenges. One is, of course, on the pest control side and the chemicals and so forth that we're able to use or not able to use. We feel like we've solved most of that challenge because even though we're growing conventionally in the crop you're looking at, most of the spraying here is done organically. So where the other challenge is in the fertility piece, and growing in the substrate or in the hydroponics, it's very difficult to get the nitrogen conversion that it would normally or naturally occur in the soil from the microbes that take the organic nitrogen and convert it into an inorganic form of nitrogen. We do have the benefit of substrate here, so that substrate ultimately may house the microbes that will do this conversion for us. There are also problems with the fertilizers that we're allowed to use. They're somewhat higher and quite a bit higher in sodium, and as a result require a little more water to flush that sodium out. The plants don't like to have salt.
Okay, interesting. And I'm seeing a lot of bees in here, so obviously raspberries are dependent upon pollinators to pollinate the flowers. And you have boxes outside, and so do you have them all around the hoop houses?
Right, so again, this is a situation where we're working with someone else that is a beekeeper, and he happens to be an old junior high school friend of mine. I didn't realize that until he showed up.
Wonderful.
Well, I know you.
That's nice.
So yeah, we have these strategically placed around the ranch, and we've also invented some little feet for them that help keep the ants from getting up. The ants love honey, and they hop in there and they wipe those hives out, and so we were able to develop some feet that actually the ants don't like, believe it or not.
Right. I liked that you said, of course, bees pollinate during the day, and they go to bed at night. And so that's when you like to spray, even if you're spraying organic materials. And I just liked hearing that you're not trying to spray your friendly bees who are pollinating for you.
No, I have to have my bees to get good pollination. So again, we're working together here. I like to see the bees, and I'm always real happy when I can get into my tunnels and I see lots of bees. I've never been bit. Or stung is the term. Of course, some of my workers have, but anybody that works in this business works around bees, because they're the ones doing all the work.
If you don't bother them, they don't bother you.
Yeah.
So we're standing, and I hope you can see, in this gorgeous, massive, and there's row after row of hoop houses. And how many acres now do you have dedicated to raspberries?
So we have 60 acres.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, it's actually, for this business, it's relatively small.
You're not competing with Mars Farms quite yet, with David Martinez.
No, but he's a good friend of mine.
Yes,
and,
he's a good guy.
He's a very good guy, and when it comes to growing in this method, yeah, then we're probably, well, I think we are the biggest grower in the country, actually, growing this way.
Wonderful.
So, and it is pretty exciting, because we've developed a partnership with a company called Priva in Holland, who does all of our irrigation controls. When you're growing in this method, it requires a very, very precise control of irrigation timing, fertility management, and pH control. And there really is one company that is most world-renowned for in this industry. They manage howlings, for example. We're all familiar with howlings. We have up in Santa Maria a company called Windset. So these large glass houses that have huge investment utilize companies to do their controls. And Priva is essentially the leader in that industry. And they are very interested in what we're doing here. I met with the CEO 2 years ago when she saw this project. She wanted to be part of that. You did. She is a wonderful person.
Well, the Dutch, like the Germans, are known for being very precise, being good engineers, being good at what they do, efficient.
Yeah, well, she's actually not an engineer, but she is probably, more importantly, she's a good person.
Good.
And anytime, you working with someone, I think that's got to be a top priority, so that you can work with them.
I say that a lot during my day. The more SEEAG grows in ag education, it's just so nice when you run across and start collaborating, doing business with wonderful people that teach you things. For me, I'm still learning a lot. And that you can trust.
You're still learning a lot?
Oh, yes. I'm learning today. What are you talking about? I'm learning today. So anything else that you would like to talk about as it relates to the Raspberry Project? And I know that Martin told me recently that educating the next generation is very important to him. And we might be, I'm not going to say anything yet, but we might be doing a project together. Maybe teaching kids more about raspberries and the journey of a raspberry. And that leads me to, how long does it take to go from blossom to ready to be harvested? I'm sure it depends on the weather and if it's hot as opposed to cold, but how many days approximately? Well,
that is such a really good question.
Did I stump you?
Well, it is a level of detail that I'm not, I think it's 90 days.
I was going to say 90.
Roughly.
Let's go with that.
It changes with time of year and so forth. But I'd like to get back to the kids piece, because I think agriculture is underrepresented in our school systems, and I think to the extent it is represented, it's misrepresented. Those of us in agriculture that grow conventionally feel like that maybe we are being demonized for spraying when we shouldn't be, or putting chemicals on your foods and so forth. And frankly, as a grower both ways, I can tell you that's just not the case. And so I took an active role and started, I asked the principal of my son's elementary school at the time, I said, you need to get your kids out here. I need to show them. And because so many people look at agriculture, and I think there's a sense of a lifestyle. Maybe this is oversimplified, but you got the overalls and the pitchfork, and you got the cattle in the back, and life is good and the perfect family. But really, agriculture is as technical as what I was doing in aerospace, and I have the same level of challenge here, and in some cases more. And if I could get that message to the next generation to say, boy, in aerospace, we were protecting our country, and here we're feeding our country. And it is a little bit more rewarding on that side of it. And the challenges are definitely there. There's no question about it.
What I find very rewarding as an educator and as a nonprofit that teaches kids about where their food comes from is that what they don't know, what the next generation doesn't know, is the amount of work that goes into our agriculture and farming, whether it be conventional or organic, and the amount of time. We'll ask students all the time, how long does it take to grow a lemon? And a lot of times they'll say a week. And by the time they see a lemon in the grocery store or at home, it's taken about a year to get to them. And in that time, it has to be, watered, irrigation, it has to be pruned, it has to be mulched, fertilized, the pests have to be, they release beneficials, and all the other departments of agriculture that go into giving us our food. And so when we take them on that journey of their food, they walk away being like, I had no idea all that work went into it.
Yeah, and anywhere along the way, you can have your crop taken from you. So, for example, we do tangerines as well in Ojai. And we recently had a frost, and luckily we had wind machines, and the wind machines went on and it kept my crop, whereas last year I didn't have wind machines and I lost plants. I lost the entire crop, and I lost trees.
But that's what sorry to interrupt you, but that's what I love too about farmers, is you learned.
Right.
And it's a challenge, and but you adapt. Like, I know so many farmers now, and they talk to me about the challenges, and you are problem solvers, and you adapt, and you'll be damned if the frost that, happened last year, if it happens this year, it's not going to happen again. So good job,
Well, listen, whether it's a frost or whether it's some new bug or whatever, the point is that there's always an element of risk in this job, and you have to be someone who really can bounce back from that failure, so to speak, and try again. There are other jobs and other careers that will give you that same sense, I'm sure, but it is very different than having gone to work as an engineer every day, worked on my analytical task, whatever it may be, and at 5 o'clock I went home. It was Monday through Friday. Here it never stops. It does not stop. These plants don't know that it's Christmas time. They don't know that it's New Year's. And it takes a very dedicated team of people to be able to make this happen literally 24/7. And if you enjoy what you're doing, the years go by. And really what I think about is, gosh, am I spending enough time with my son?
Well, I'm sure you are, but with engineering, it's very precise, it's very methodical, there's certain formulas, and with agriculture, there's so many intangible variables, like the weather, like the bugs, like water, that you have no control over whatsoever. So that's where all these, you never know at the end of the season how much you're going to have, what your yield's going to be. It's all a big risk.
Sure. And at one level, it's there's more risk there. At the other level, there is quite a bit of this that can be very precise, and that's what you're looking at here in the substrate. This is taking, in fact, the CEO of Driscoll coined this as precision farming, okay? Where what we do relative to how we irrigate and how we farm is very, very precise.
So thank you, Martin. And do you have a website that they can learn more about the Raspberry Project?
You know, I haven't developed a website around the Raspberry Project. I mean, we have a website, you know, sod.com, because that's the core business, still is the core business.
But they could go to Driscolls.com.
At some point they could go to Driscoll's. Driscoll's may or may not have anything on this project. We're featured on Priva's Canadian website, so you can see us on there.
Okay.
But
and in our newsletter, I'll put the website addresses and the printed part. So thank you so much. So
thank you. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you as well. And I hope that in a year from now we can do another interview with how many kids we've taught about raspberries.
Yeah, you got to get them out here.
Okay.
Because I have fun with the kids.
Sounds good. And I'll see you again next month.